that. There we go. Yeah. Okay, it's probably a little bit better. All righty. Agenda? Do we have any corrections or anything? I don't have any. Do you have any? Any corrections from our board? Okay. And what I'd like to do, first of all, is go ahead and have everybody go around and tell who the people that are the organization that you represent. So, John, we're going to start with you. If you would do that, please.
Woodland Park, John DeVoe.
Oren Childers, citizen at large.
Juliet, League of Women Voters. Michelle Day, citizen at large.
Adam Resner, El Paso County.
Bill Bowles, Park County.
And Ash Green, Mountain Falls.
Terry Hayes, Town of Monument.
Jim Moore, citizen at large.
Roy Rosenthal, Manitou Springs.
Hal Moffett, El Paso County.
Tim O'Donnell, Kono.
Sharon Brown, City of Fountain.
Jessica McMullen, PPACG. And do we want to have the audience as well, please?
Yes.
Norm C. Telecom.
And?
Steve Nelson, CDOT. Brian McCooley, City of Colorado Springs, Mount Medford, Tracy.
Nathan O'Brien, PPACG.
John Leo Santos, PPACG.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, and Norm, you also hold another important position. Would you please?
Thank you, Chair. How these things work. Norm Steen, Matella County Commissioner. I'm also the chair of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. I just want to take a moment to thank each of the members of the CAC for what you do. You may not know, but the recommendations, both recorded by Jim in the past and by the past chairs, and the minutes are reviewed by the full board prior to making a decision. We get those full packets a week ahead. And I, for one, read those comments carefully, especially if there's any disagreement, because sometimes matters that are captured in discussion that are important to the board. So I just want to let you know that we really sincerely appreciate your effort. You have a lot of other places you could be at a beautiful, beautiful Colorado day, and thank you for your contribution. It is really important, and we sincerely appreciate it on behalf of the full board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have an approval of the consent agenda? I don't see any changes, but yes, Jim?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. So Jim and Michelle, thank you very much. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to public comments. And do we have, she's still working on it. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. This is kind of this is a sad day, at least it is for me, because we're going to be losing three of our really valued members, and we're sorry to see you go. We realize you're term limited, and that's just, it's just hard when this type of thing happens. So I think we'll go ahead and, Michelle, I think we'll start with you. Would you like to, unfortunately, we hate to see you go, but we would would you like to make some comments on?
No, just thanks to everyone here, and especially to the staff that supported us, or me while I was here for, I think it was about 5-6 years. It's been an honor and a pleasure to, go through the discussions that we have here, and it really is an important service that we provide to the community. So just encourage everyone to keep talking to your, the people that you represent, and make sure that you bring those ideas and thoughts forward to the board.
Well, I for one, have really appreciated your comments and all that you have contributed. Thank you so much for serving. We greatly appreciate it. So, is there anybody else who would like to make a comment about Michelle? Positive comment about Michelle.
Jim, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your efforts. So, do we have those?
We do. We have a little certificate to say thank you, and to make sure that it is not round filed. We also got a little comment from other folks here on the CAC saying thank you for everything you've done.
Okay.
You want to go hand it over to us so I can take a picture?
Oh, you take a picture, okay.
Yeah. I'd also like to have Norm come up, because you're here as the chairman.
Oh, good.
Look my way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. You're still not allowed to leave. You have to keep coming.
Yes, you can. Yes, yeah. You may visit at any time. Okay, next.
So our next one is Hal.
Okay. Hal, your input has been incredible, and I really appreciate it. I know sometimes you kind of take a devil's advocate, and that's fine. And I appreciate that you can bring up another side and make us, think about it. And I know you've served on various committees with this group, and I appreciate all of that as well. So, does anybody have anything else positive they'd like to add to Hal? Yes, Jim.
Well, actually, I'm going to speak to both, and I'm sorry Ellen's not here right now.
Right.
For those of us who do volunteer, we understand what's involved, and there's a heck of a lot of people who don't participate in activities like this, particularly governmental. I have been impressed very much with Hal's knowledge, his insight, his, I wouldn't call it being a devil's advocate. I would say more of a clarifier, if you will,
Okay.
as to what is going on to make sure that we knew what we were doing. And Michelle, it was about as much fun as I could stand vertically with you, and I enjoyed serving with you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. with
Once again,
that-
Norm and Hal, come up, let me
Yes.
take your picture.
Just like that.
There you go.
Thank you all. Thank you. And we do have one for Ellen as well, and she said she would come to our next meeting so that we can all say goodbye to her.
Good.
Could I say something about Hal?
You bet. You bet. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to thank him. I've been a member of the CAC for almost a year, and he has been such a great help to me. I'm from Green Mountain Falls, and I go to all the town meetings up there, and often I'm the only citizen that attends. But I really enjoy it, and I think this is so important, and Hal helped me so much, because for a brief time I served on the Water Quality Committee until they could get someone that was more suited, because I'm not an engineer or a scientist. But Hal has just been a real help to me personally. Thank you.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Um,
Hal.
I'd like to say that I think the time that I've spent has seen the CAC change dramatically. If you recall, we had several conversations about what's our purpose, and are we really giving feedback, are we useful? And I really think that we have changed, and that when we decide that we want to get involved in something and give an opinion, we're more forceful, we're more confident that that opinion, I think, speaks for a portion of the community that we represent. And I do think that, and in fact know that the PPACG board listens. There's only been a couple times where we've really said that we disagree with other decisions, and they have listened to that. They've listened carefully. So, first of all, thank you to everybody. It's been great being here. I look forward to seeing you around town. Jim and I ran into the Dunkin' Donuts together this morning, or this afternoon. So, thank you very much. It's been great.
Okay. And thank you to both of you. Ellen apparently is ill, bronchitis, running a temperature, so she uninvited herself, and we're glad that she did that. We didn't want to be exposed to that. Bless her heart. Okay, and she'll be here next, so we can do. Okay, excellent. Okay, next we have Mountain Metro Transit. Brian Batuli.
Good afternoon, Brian Vituli with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit. I'm the planning supervisor with the Transit Division, and I'm also the first vice chair of PPACG's Transportation and Advisory Committee. It's been a while since I've been back to this group, and I've been giving updates all along as this project has progressed. So I thought, since there are so many newer members to the CAC, I'd kind of start with a brief summary, about 10 or 15 slides, to show you the process that we went through, and then kind of shift gears to where we are now, and throw in a couple alternative plans in case everything doesn't go as expected, which I'm going to remain very optimistic and positive this entire time, and eventually we will get this built somewhere, and we'll just go from there. We do have information on our city website. There has been not only this downtown transit station relocation study, but there's been a steering committee appointed by the mayor to look at the 3 sites. And so there's a lot of information on our website. If you hear something today that sparks an interest and you want to follow up on, you can go to our website and get more information. So when I say we really want to get this done, and it's been a long time coming, I just had to update this slide before I came here. We're at 2 decades of studying a new downtown transit station relocation. Started back in the late 90s. And what's not on here is our recent study in 2016 and 2017. And somewhere also in that history is kind of a mini study that looked at a few of the sites and getting appraisals for them. So right now we're at 8 studies and 20 years, and roughly $2 to $2.5 million of studies. Why now? It's the same situation since we moved into the ground floor of this parking structure at Kiowa in Nevada. We've been there since 1976. Operations are very difficult. Our vehicles pull in on southbound Nevada and pull out onto one-way Kiowa. Kiowa only goes eastbound. We have a lot of routes that head north out of downtown. We can't go left or north on Nevada because of that maneuver and traffic coming from the west. So we have to go further east on Kiowa to Weber and then come back to Nevada. So it's difficult for operations. We can't get all of our vehicles out of the terminal at the same time. We operate on a pulse system, so every 15 minutes we have a number of vehicles that leave the terminal at the same time. And, with traffic coming from the west, it's kind of use a bigger bus as a block so the other buses can pull out. And that's not always the most, traffic-friendly maneuver, but it's what we have to do. Safety is difficult. If you see this top photo here is the inside of our terminal. When the vehicles pull in, they pull in nose to tail. There's a little bit of space in between each vehicle. Passengers are, moving through the terminal, moving in between very large buses. We don't have loading and unloading platforms. So if there's a wheelchair passenger and the ramp deploys, the ramp is put at a sharper angle, which kind of creates some challenges to wheelchairs. Restroom facilities are not currently up to ADA standards. There are a few situations that we need to improve. The experience for our customers, like I said, it's in the ground floor of a parking garage. It's dark and uninviting. It's not really a destination that you really want to go to unless you have to. And we think there's some economic revitalization opportunities that we're missing out on. So if we can get into a new location where we could perhaps have more of a multimodal facility where we could have better service from Bustang. Greyhound's also expressed interest in using our new facility. We could have our human service providers use our facility, have good non-motorized access, bicycles and pedestrians. It could be a lot better. These are the project limits. So we have Boulder Street on the north, Wasatch on the east, Los Alamos on the south, and the interstate and Monument Creek on the west. All of these sites here, our consultants looked at 29 sites that look to be potential locations. If you see that there's 3 purple ones, which is kind of hard to see, and as soon as I find my pointer here, there's one here at Colorado and Sawatch, and then here along Nevada. We got Pueblo Avenue here. So there's 3 sites that will come up a little bit later here that I'll talk about. But these 29 sites went through a multi-level screening process. First, they were screened out if the property owner just wasn't interested or had other plans for the property. We crossed it off. And then looking at different criteria, we whittled it down from 29 to 11, and then down to 5, and then down to the final 3 sites. The first of the 3 sites is at Colorado and Sawatch. So you got Colorado on the north, Sawatch on the east, Cucharas on the south, and Sierra Madre on the west. It's kind of 3/4 of this entire block. The surface parking that's in the northeastern corner is owned by the property to the north, which is the beauty salon school, and the title company that's on the east side of Sawatch. So they use that surface parking for their employees and some customers. So we'd basically be getting 3/4 of this block. There is potential that those property owners may eventually come into this entire project and we could have the entire block. That is something that could happen. There would likely be a signal put here at Colorado and Sawatch to make getting in and out easier. And with more traffic projected in the southwest downtown area with the new Olympic Museum and all of the redevelopment, it's only a matter of time before a new traffic signal will be needed there anyways. So Site 12 is directly across from the Pioneers Museum on the east side of Nevada. It's the old Colorado Springs Health Partners site. The Independent newspaper is in the southwestern corner of the block. The property owner has, at the time that the study was done, expressed interest, but that interest has evaporated. So this really isn't an opportunity anymore, and it's one of the most well-known, influential developers in town here. So this property is not available. Site 17, the final site that was prioritized it's the 2 blocks of Pueblo Avenue. So you have Nevada on the west, and then the site that I just showed you is just to the north here. So we have Nevada, and then this would be Costilla and Weber on the west. And then the southern block is Costilla, Cimarron on the south. This was a site, actually all 3 of these sites have come up in the previous 7 studies, and many of the sites just get recycled and repeated in each study because they're really good locations. And Pueblo Avenue, it was very important for the city to kind of contain or keep a public option on the table because the city owns the street, the right-of-way. So this was one option that we wanted to keep available. What we were thinking is Mountain Metro Transit operations could be on the northern part of Pueblo Avenue, and Bustang and Greyhound could be in the southern part. They would have really good access to Cimarron and then good access to the interstate. But there was quite a bit of adjacent property owner opposition to this site as well, and didn't jive with other development interests. So this one's off the table also, as of now. So this study, the relocation study, pretty much wrapped up in early 2017 with these 3 top sites, rising to the surface. The mayor then appointed a steering committee in early 2017 to rank and prioritize these 3 sites and give us better direction on which way to go. The mayor then approved the steering committee's recommendation summer of 2017, June or July. And, the ranking came out just as I presented, with the Site 8, the Colorado Saguache site being the #1 ranked site. The Colorado Springs Health Partners site across from the Pioneers Museum is #2, and then Pueblo Avenue is #3. Then our city council approved a resolution of support in August or September of 2017. So we really had a lot of momentum. We had 3 defined sites that if the first one didn't work out, we could go on to the second one. If that didn't work out, we could go on to the third. And then, it's somewhat stalled until right now, and you could still say that it's somewhat stalled. We get asked a lot of questions very often, PPACG CAC, the PPRTA CAC and board. Our city council members are asking. This Site 8, it's owned by several members of the same family. This site has come up many times before. Many times they've expressed an interest and then, pulled the rug out from the process. And so we're approaching it kind of cautiously. And following the steering committee and the resolution of support from council, negotiations with the property owner kind of started and stopped. And it's an out-of-town property owner. And I guess he has other projects and really wants to do something and kind of really understands the urgency with the way the economic conditions are in town here. The southwestern section of downtown is key redevelopment now, and there seems to be some urgency that he needs to do something now or we'll miss out on great things. So as of the past few months, he's expressed an interest, a strong interest in getting something going. And what he wants to do runs the gamut from having a heliport for helicopters and flying cars in the future to having like a Disney-themed attraction. And so we're trying to keep some level-headedness to this, and he has employed a local architect who's working with him, who was actually in the steering committee.
Does this guy own Tesla?
No.
Okay.
Just one.
And so, we're hopeful that the local architect, and he already has brought a lot of credibility to the project and trying to keep the property owner his expectations realistic. And, it's going to be a multi-story conference center, hotel room, 25 floors. He has grand plans for it, and then transit would be on the ground floor. And, this site has very nice vista looking to the west of the mountains, and it has kind of a slope from Saguache to Sierra Madre. So there could be some interesting design concepts included in this that could really make for a nice transit center. What he's looking to, currently where we are, is he's looking to use, this is a funded project. We have the money to build this. he wants to use our money, which is federal money, Federal Transit Administration money, it seems like as seed money to kind of get the project going. We're really unsure that we can do that. We can't really turn over our federal money to a private developer to go forward, because then his intent would be to, give us something back, which would be our transit center as like condo space. So that would be kind of a swap. But he wants our money up front to do that. And so we need to understand that better and work through that to see if it's a possibility. It could very well not really go anywhere. And then our backup option there would be to offer him, market value plus, I believe with FTA funds you can offer up to 10%. So market value plus 10%. The city owns the property. It would be a less complicated process. We could do our design and our construction. We don't know how that's going to go. So that's kind of where we are with this property owner. We don't really have any backup options. Site 12 and 17 are not an option anymore. And so what we also have is we had a request for qualifications that just ended today to look at our existing downtown transit terminal. So it's being called an operations, engineering, and facility capacity assessment. Really complicated name with not a good acronym to put on it. But basically what we're going to look at is, are there improvements, renovations, structural changes that we can do to it to give us better space to operate? And that's assuming that we're going to continue to expand. We're going to need more room. Perhaps put sawtooth bays inside with elevated platforms for our customers to board and unload. So, perhaps there are, when you're doing a renovation at your house, you're always careful about, taking that wall out so your house doesn't collapse. We don't want to do that to our parking structure, so we need to look at, are there changes that can be made that could free up some room? Could we move the waiting area, the restrooms, some of the office space that's downstairs on the ground floor to the second floor that gives us more room? Could we put in a mid-block traffic signal on Kiowa that would stop eastbound traffic when our buses are pulling out of the facility? So we're looking at that as an additional backup plan. We've been doing a lot of backup plans. We also looked at Dorchester Park, which is on South Nevada, in between Tejon and Nevada. It's currently a city park that's being used for everything else besides a city park, and that's a very feasible option. There's a lot of space there. We could have a nice center, but it would no longer be a downtown transit center. It's a little bit disconnected from downtown, and it would be, the city's redevelopment plans does not really target that area of South Nevada and Tejon right now. So we'd have kind of a diamond in the rough situation, which would be a really nice brand new transit center, but surrounded by some other uses that we don't really want in proximity to our transit center. So we have several options on the table. We're going to play this as long as we can on Site 8 at Colorado and Saguache. Continue to work with the property owner until it just doesn't go any further, and then in the meantime conduct this assessment of our downtown transit terminal and see if that's an option, and then go from there. Yes.
Yeah, as somebody who lives across the street from the current bus station, don't put a light there. That's a bad idea. There are too many trucks and deliveries and all kinds of stuff going on. Is this project a candidate for eminent domain?
The mayor and city council's not. They don't have the appetite for that. And we've run into that with the 7 previous studies. eminent domain was never on the table. And we had property owner objections, adjacent property owner objections, and then came very close sometimes, but yeah, council never wanted to go there.
Good.
Yep. It would be a lot easier.
Yeah. So we'll see you in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. So, this is a great, we still feel it's a great project for the city. It turns a basic bus station, bus terminal into a true multimodal center with a lot of different options. It could be, a smaller scale Denver Union Station project. We could implement some smart design, make it accessible for everybody, and it's very consistent with our city's strategic plan goals. These are some of the uses that we could have into a true transportation center. We could have nice waiting space, food options, bike storage, and community space for community meetings. And, it aligns with a lot of the recent planning that's been done in the downtown area. The Downtown Partnerships Experience Downtown Master Plan and the Southwest Downtown Development Plans. Again, smart design, accessible for all. So I'd be glad to answer any questions, and hopefully I can give you an update in the near future with some more noise, not noise, better news.
Better news.
Any questions?
Okay, all right. Okay, well, go ahead. I think John was first, and then we'll take Ellen.
After 8 renditions of this and $2.5 million, you still don't have a willing buyer and a willing seller. You've got a seller with no money that wants your money, and you've got the money and have no property to go to. When do you just sit back and take a break for a couple of years and see what happens? Because
took a
you've got
break.
no other, the council, and they're not working with you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are just spending money. You came back the same thing all the time.
Yeah, well, we took a break. If you remember that slide, we haven't looked at this since 2009. That's the closest we've been. We had the funding. We had a site. We had design, and the property owner and council, did a 180 at the last minute. So we took a break from 2009 to 2016 when we looked at this, but our needs are still the same. I mean, we still have operational challenges. We have safety issues, and we want to address them. And yeah, we don't plan on doing another study. We really want to work this through and try to finalize it and come to a resolution. But I agree with you. I mean, it's very frustrating. It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of effort from the community, because all of these are community-driven plans, and we have to hire consultants, and there's a lot of staff time in managing these consultants, and yeah, it's very frustrating.
Is there any change in the technology of the transportation industry that would change some of those things as far as innovations in transportation?
Well, by making this a multimodal center, I mean, we would be incorporating a lot of the new technologies. I mean, we could have space for, our human service providers. We could have better space or designated space for other mobility providers, taxi cab, Uber, Lyft, all of that. As far as technology, we are moving toward electric vehicles. We intend to have use slow overnight charging to charge them for the next pull out. There could be a time where, if we do get into a new center, they have fast charging capabilities that we could put at all of our transfer centers, where routes that are operating over longer distances can stay out longer if they can top off their battery charge, when they're laying over at a transfer center. So that would be incorporated into, a new facility, or retrofitted into our existing terminal if that's where we stay. But yeah, we are looking at upcoming
Appreciate the
technologies.
frustration you're going through.
Yes,
Good luck.
Thank you.
definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. Ann, I think you were next, so, and then Hal. Oh, okay.
I think he asked for.
Okay. Okay. Hal, did you?
Yeah, let me share. My daughter went to university in Scotland, and my son-in-law is from there, and we spent a lot of time in Scotland. They have excellent bus transportation, everywhere, anywhere. Why don't we take, or why not, have you thought about taking a city-owned and operated parking lot that is significantly sized and converted into the space that you need? Pretty much close to where the existing terminal is. I can think of 3 or 4 parking lots. They may not be perfect, but they're already city-owned. They're large. What's the problem with that?
I believe all the city-owned properties have facilities on them. There are some surface parking lots, but
Correct.
they're privately owned, and they were considered in the scan of the project area and came up with the 29 sites. So some of those were owned by the same developers that we've been dealing with, and they just weren't interested. They had other plans for the property or didn't want to convert it into a transit center.
So we don't
So
have
they were
any
considered.
city-owned parking lots that might be conducive to this, even if other portions of the community disagree? But the actual structure, the actual footage that's needed?
No, right. As I said, my understanding is our city-owned parking facilities all have structures on them. There's no surface parking, city-owned properties. And the parking enterprise director was part of the project team, and that none of those ever came up. We'd just be moving from the ground floor of one parking facility to another one.
Tamara.
Thank you.
I'm first impressed that you can still smile and joke about this. I usually have to through the frustration. Can you go a little bit more in detail about Site 17? That's city-owned. Right now, I think it's just on-street parking, right? Am I correct in thinking that's the location? Can you talk about the issues that's creating the adjacent property owners to resist having a nice transit station that can bring more businesses into the area? What are we missing on that?
Well, there's a smaller local developer who built the new their townhomes that are right on Costilla, in between Wasatch and Weber. So the northern block of Pueblo Avenue. She objected to having, those 2 blocks of Pueblo Avenue turned into a transit center. And by the time our final public meeting came for the relocation study, there were several other adjacent property owners who shared her concern. She was very vocal, and she was on the project steering committee also, or the stakeholder group, and she was able to bring it to the attention of the right people, and we were told to stand down, that it just wouldn't be an option. So Pueblo Avenue is not an option. And from what we found out, that even though we considered it the public option, the city owns the right-of-way, I guess before it could be turned over to the city to use, it would have to be given to the adjacent property owners, and then, so there's a land development process that I don't quite understand. So it's not as free and clear as the city taking back its right-of-way to put on it what it wants. So there's a land planning process that would have to happen. So we would, in essence, have to, it would get reverted back to the property owner that it abuts it, and then we would have to negotiate or purchase it back from them. So it's not as clean as we once thought, but it's just the objections of the adjacent property owners that really killed the site.
It's frustrating.
Okay, Hal.
I'm going to be a little bit harsh and say that it's a matter of prioritization, working with the city council and others, and having the will to get something done.
I don't
Sorry.
disagree with you. Don't disagree.
Okay. Okay, Jim.
Did I understand you correctly that at this point in time, the mayor and city council don't have this near the top of their list? Is that a fair assessment?
Our writers are very good at advocating for themselves and for our system, and so they regularly, every 2 weeks at the formal city council session, they're asking for a better transit system for our city, but also when is our new downtown transit center going to be built? So council is hearing about it, and the mayor is too, but
It really sounds like in the political world, you're missing a champion for this.
well, we thought we had that when the mayor formed the steering committee, and I think we still do to some effect. City council approved a resolution of support, so we had a lot of momentum. We have a really good site, and we have a really good process that was followed to get that site. But now there have been some missteps that the property owner took that raised alarms at City Hall and at the mayor's office, which made us be a little bit cautious. Property owner seems to be experienced in these types of projects on one hand, but then on the other hand, some of the ideas that we're hearing are just a little bit baffling and troubling. So that's why we've moved forward in some ways, and then there have been some missteps, and we lose that momentum, and we move back. And now we kind of have a clear direction and a clear charge to play this out with the current property owner, see if we can come to terms, get a joint agreement. If we can't use our FT funds as starter money, seed money, tell him that. If he says no deal, then we say, okay, will you take market value plus 10%? And if he says no, then we just walk away, and he's going to be stuck with an old bookstore and a piano shop and a U.S. Postal Service maintenance facility for how many more years? So that's kind of where we are now.
This may sound like a rhetorical question, but does PPACG have a dog in this fight?
Well,
Not that I'm suggesting a dog fight, but
well, we have 3 of our council members are on the PPACG board, and it could be brought up at the board in some capacity. We hear a lot of roadway priority lists, and we just threw the PPACG TAC, and you saw it last fall. And through the board, we came up with a transit development program, which was kind of the list that went onto the ballot measure last fall, Proposition 110, which failed. But transit would be glad to be talked about at the PPACG board. It isn't very often, but we would take any help any way we could get it. I'm just not quite sure how that would come about, but we do have 3 of our council members that are on the board. One is a very, very strong transit proponent. One is the chair of the state Southwest Chief Passenger Rail Commission. So there is a lot of support from our city council members on the PPACG board.
well, it seems to me that this might be You know, we talked a few minutes ago about how the board values our input, and at one point in some of our conversations, we talked about the CAC bringing forward issues that we believe merit more serious board consideration. It seems to me this, I was surprised at 1976.
Yes.
That's the spirit. I just can't believe that this continues to languish at a time when we are talking about infill, we're talking about a number of other things. We're talking about adding little houses in our backyards, and City for Champions. This is something that I think really needs to move up the priority list.
Yeah, and response to that of how to get the PPACG board involved, you know, it's interesting because PPACG is a 16-member government organization, but we're funded very heavily by the PPRTA, which is Colorado Springs, El Paso County, Manitou Springs, and Green Mountain Falls and Rama. We don't have service in Green Mountain Falls. We don't have service in Rama. So there's 3 of the 16-member governments that are at the PPACG board meetings that have a dog in the fight. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think there's a place for PPACG board discussion about it. I just don't know. It's, you know, it's such a small fraction of the member governments that the PPACG board make up. But there is a place for it, even if it's just a letter of support or resolution of support or something like that to do something and get something built, make a decision. Mr. Steen, do you have any? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, sure. Brian is exactly correct. 16-member governments, 20 votes. The PPACG board takes up issues that are of common interest across boundaries. This one is a very narrow boundary just in the city of Colorado Springs. We're very careful not to take positions that are over the heads of any single member. Even in legislative matters, we don't take a position where a single member would object or try to force an issue upon a member. We're more about collaboration, coordination, bringing in federal funding, bringing in resources, but we're not about really leverage, to kind of be clear. Great question. I mean, I can just feel the frustration here myself. If this were my own county, I'd be willing to take it up a notch myself. But if there were areas that the Pikes Peak Area Council, the board, could help, I'm sure we'd be open to ideas that you had, where we could help. But I could just tell. Yes, Jim?
Well, with respect, if I understand the concept that Brian and everybody's been working on for 40 years, this involves interstate transportation. It involves transportation up and down the I-25 corridor. It could involve transportation up and down.
Now you got the transportation director's attention.
Yeah. Oh, John.
Go ahead. No,
but I mean, this is one of these things that when we start talking about the magic goals that are out there, this thing is right in the middle of one of the sweet spots.
Yeah.
That I think if the board members, if the people on the board are being too local in their focus and not understanding what the total implications are of this, that might be an issue that deserves some serious consideration. But for me, listening to this, listening to how long it's gone on, listening to the challenges that have come up, and the true absence of a champion outside of Mountain Metro, to me, I think, is a red flag that this is not going to go anywhere unless somebody steps up and says, this is something we need to do as a community. It may even fall, in my view, in the same or a step lower in priority to what the I-25 gap has meant for the entire Front Range.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think one of the things we strive for as a board is to look regionally and statewide. We are one of 5 metro areas in the state. Every month, we take our local issues to a statewide level, and they all have statewide relevance as well. If it's an issue of objection from adjacent landowners, if you have a willing, back to John's point, again, a willing buyer or seller on a specific piece of property, but the adjacent ones object, I think that'd be another whole issue. And I'm an elected official myself, and I would think that if you have a willing buyer and seller with a specific property, but the adjacent ones object, you can work through that. I mean, because that's a permitted use. If I own land and I want to do something with it, the guy next to me, he can buy my land or he can object, but there's a right to build there if there's an agreement between 2 willing parties. So, John, you have something to jump in?
Well,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, so back to the question of where does PPACG sort of fit in the big picture. So as the Council of Governments, that's the voluntary organization, Park, El Paso, and Teller counties, come together to cooperatively work on regional issues, AAA, transportation, others, air quality, water quality. So for this particular discussion, we're more focused on what is known as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, which is basically Colorado Springs and the urbanized parts of unincorporated El Paso County, Monument, Palmer Lake, Fountain, out there, right? So from that perspective, Brian is absolutely right. So the support that was given to the project was FTA, Federal Transit Administration, comes and says, you've got X amount of dollars available in transit monies, and then after they go through that transit programming process, they're then programmed into our long-range document and our TIP. So that's how we've already shown support for this project in general, but not getting into the detail of exactly where it would be located. That sort of crosses over, as Commissioner Steen has said, into that sort of local control, i.e., we're not going to go into Colorado Springs and say, within this downtown, Fountain and Monument want you to put this transit center right here. That's a land use decision and a local control issue that, again, there are cities and that are, in fact, cities within this region because they want to maintain their land use control. So to the extent of where we could be supportive in the future, Brian had mentioned that if they need to go to FTA and say, hey, what's the rules for a capital purchase with these 5307 funds? We want to do a capital purchase. And they're like, well, if you own it in fee title, you're good. But if the property owner says, well, we want to we'll give you a fee for the first floor, but we want rights for floors 2 through 7 or whatever it is, FTA could say, well, we're okay with that, but we're going to need a letter of support. So then that's when MMT would come back to the board and say, hey, we need a letter of support for something that we want to do. So we can be supportive of helping along the way if, in fact, Colorado Springs, again, without getting into local control issues, says this is the property we want, and these are the things that we have to do. PPACG, can you help? To that extent, as we get further down the line, certainly if MMT comes back and says we need some support with FTA, that is certainly things that we could do. Does that help, or did I just make it worse?
Sounds a lot like the Air Force.
Well, it is a government operation, so that's...
No, and I understand, and I appreciate the frustration of battling with the bureaucracy, but I don't want to dominate this. There's no champion to speak of. Well, Brian, but I'm sure, having not been in exactly Brian's position, but I'm sure Brian could use somebody that's a little farther up the food chain, that's taking an interest and is engaging some of these principles in this, principles being the people involved in this discussion. Because I don't know why it's like we're being held hostage to some guy who can't make up his mind what he wants to do somewhere else. And that, to me, would be very frustrating. I'm sure that there have been conversations with our federal representative, with some of our state representative, elected officials and so on are aware of this. But have any of them spoken up to say, I can carry your flag for you, or I'll go polish your spear, or whatever needs to be done?
No.
No? Okay. No, I'll
Okay.
be quiet.
I'm curious. I'm curious if there has been, if any thought has been given to like substations, because I've ridden a lot of public transit in the last year in different cities, and if they have stations, metro stations here, and then you go a few miles down the track, and there's another one where you buy your tickets. There's assistance. There are so many properties on the east side, if you want bus tank connections. The Woodman and I-25 area seems like there's empty spots up there. I know there's complications there, too. But any thought of taking it away from downtown to one of these other spots? And along with that, I don't know where the majority of ridership is going, and if they want to go downtown or not.
Yeah, those are good questions. The way our system's set up now, we have a multiple hub and spoke system. Our downtown transit terminal is our main transfer location, but we have transfer centers at Pikes Peak Community College in the south, Voyager Parkway in the north, the Citadel Mall in the east. Manitou is kind of evolving into a mini transit hub there with several routes that converge there. And actually, this is something that we're going to be dealing with this downtown transit terminal assessment on, is if we can't find the space, say Site 8 doesn't materialize, we're stuck at our downtown transit terminal for another 40 years. Is there a way that we can change our operation where we don't have as many vehicles laying over there? They could take the layover out at the Citadel or at Pikes Peak Community College. So we will look at that, change the way our system operates, and still have those routes come downtown, but they would not lay over there. So we would not need the additional space for them in the terminal. So we could free up space for other expansion activities that we want. We're looking at perhaps a downtown circulator. We would need space for something like that. So is there a way we can free space up by changing our operations? But as far as a full-scale restructuring of how we operate and having, other hubs placed in other areas, we're kind of looking at that a little bit already. The Academy Hancock in the southeast part of the city. That location is targeted for some intersection improvements through a project that the city has funded through PPACG's TIP. It's going to be, taking out the on and off ramps of South Academy at Hancock, freeing up some space, land space for redevelopment. Having, if you're familiar, there's Boychuk, making that a full intersection. We then have plans to have a transfer center in the southwestern corner of Academy and Hancock. So we're kind of trying to restructure our system in small ways that help our customers and help our operation. But I don't really see us changing from that multiple hub and spoke. What we've done over the last several years is overlaying our local system with a lot of high-frequency transit corridors. So we have very frequent services operating on North and South Nevada, North and South Academy, Boulder and Platte. So we have these high-capacity, high-frequency corridors overlaid over our existing system. And that's probably the direction that we're still going to stay in, but trying to modify where we can and improve our operations along the way.
Okay, probably take one or two more questions, and then we'll need to wrap it up. And thank you, Brian, very much. Okay. Aubrey,
Yeah, just
and then
a
we'll take Adam.
real quick comment. First, I think you meant to say southeast circulator.
What's that?
I think you meant to say southeast circulator, didn't you? Just kidding. Just kidding.
I was going to say that next.
Sure, okay,
Yeah.
thanks. I think it's worth noting that the political will for the downtown terminal and our transit system in general is a pretty direct reflection of the public will. And so if you really want to see change, I think it starts with us. We are the public, and if you want to sort of increase discussion about it, it starts right here, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Adam.
Yeah, just another quick comment. It sounded like most of the opposition to the Pueblo site came from that local developer. I don't know if you know, but she sold her properties recently in the area, so I don't know if that improves the viability or not, but just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you. Yeah, and, that's kind of another example of what we dealt with in the previous 7 studies where the will to purchase the property was not there, and we had, landowner opposition. And then after the study failed and the project was killed, that property owner sold and moved out of town. And so, there are a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of politics, and a lot of opposition from adjacent property owners. But that's good to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. We really appreciate the update.
Thank you very much for the time.
And we need to move on. We now to bring up our transportation director, if you would.
It's difficult when it's a public process. It's like playing cards and you're just showing everybody what you've got. Everybody knows what you're doing. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm here for the Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. It is a federally required document that describes the work of the Transportation Agency over the next 2 fiscal years. It details the sources of funding our planning work along with the expected funding levels and the work tasks to be completed. It makes our work very transparent and accountable for our members and for the public. The UPWP does not list funding for construction or other capital projects, but it may include regionally significant studies done by our member jurisdictions. It does not determine which transportation projects are eligible for funding. The UPWP is subject to modification or amendments as the need arises, and there's traditionally a midpoint amendment after the first year. With your recommendation, we hope to seek the board approval of the UPWP in June. And with that, I know it was in your packet, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have had reading over the document in preparation for the meeting.
Are there any questions, or do we need to go ahead and call for the vote? Yes, Jim.
John, what if anything has been changed from what we looked at, I want to say 6 months ago, when there was the update with the new executive director?
So the difference between that document and this document, I think one of the main points is that, let's see if I remember the number. I might not remember the number, but it was basically the inclusion of the environmental planning. So I think you'll recall, as Andy Gunning, the executive director, has come to you, he had said one of the things that he wanted to add was to add a environmental planner. So Sam Bailey has been hired. She's upstairs now. Now, of course, in government, all of you have, I think, have some connection or at least experience with government over time. You sort of have to make sure you've got that budget. So anything that Sam is going to be working on that's transportation related, because we've got stormwater and some other transportation related things that are an eligible transportation expense, they need to be included in that document for Sam to work on that. So we don't know if it's going to be about 30 or 40% of our time, but that is one addition that is in here. Additionally, I think we went through and kind of stepped back a little bit on some of the funding elements to make sure that our overall budget is more sustainable over time. Catherine, can you think of anything else that was really a big addition from the last one? We'll take the head shake as no. That's basically about it in a nutshell, but those are the big things. I think I added a little section on how the time gets charged, again, to be more transparent. I think that's an extra page that's in there. But other than that, that's about it.
Okay. With that, if there are no other questions, then we need to go ahead and take a vote. So I need to have someone move that we go ahead with this. Or is there any? Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Courtney, hi.
Courtney, okay.
Approve recommending the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 Unified Planning Work Program to the board.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, that was Aubrey, okay. Oh, Julie, oh. Oh, she's, oh, okay. Okay. Take your choice. I think we'll take Julie. Okay. All right, all of those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, we need to bring up our senior transportation planner, Catherine.
Good afternoon, Catherine Wenger, Senior Transportation Planner. We have 3 requests to amend our Transportation Improvement Program, or our TIP. This is amendment number 9. It includes a request from El Paso County to add funds to their Falcon Park and Ride. And you'll see on the second side there's another table that talks about applications. I'll get back to that in just a second. We also have a request from Mountain Metro Transit to reduce some funds for their Route 12 Phase 4 project, and that's because they rescoped the project based on some other funds they got, and so they're returning some of those funds back to the region to be reallocated. And then finally we have add a new project into our TIP that is for 3 battery electric buses and chargers, because Mountain Metro Transit receives some funds from the Volkswagen settlement and some state faster funds to purchase those. And so we need to add those to our TIP document. And then that second table was talking about, we had some funds that came back to the region, including those Mountain Metro Transit funds, or the funds that they didn't need. And so we did a call for projects and for requests for cost overruns, and we received 3 applications, but through the TAC process, Colorado Springs and Mountain Metro withdrew their projects for consideration in favor of Falcon Park and Ride to receive all of the funds that they need to get that project going. And so that's what you see on the second page.
Do we have any questions for Catherine? Okay, then we need to have a motion to approve the TIP amendments.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Okay, Tamara.
The 5 points roundabout, they did not receive the formal stuff. Does that mean that project is not going forward, or do they?
No, they found money elsewhere, so that project is still moving forward and should start construction later this year, so it's still good.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we need to have a motion.
I'll move. Hal Moffett.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, Tamara, seconded. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, passes. Excellent. Okay, we're on to public participation, and this is Jason O'Brien.
Good afternoon, Jason O'Brien, PPACG Transportation Planner. I'll be brief because this was before you last month as a discussion item.
Yeah.
Mostly just want to see if there are any questions today, but just very briefly, the public participation plan. It's really a procedural document that guides our public input efforts as we work on our other planning projects like the Long-Range Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Program. Just ensures that we've got an inclusive process that's reflective of kind of the public will of the region. Does not determine which projects are eligible for funding, federal transportation funds, or which projects are going to get built. So with that, the history is just that this came out as a draft January and February of this year. We received some comments from our federal partners that prompted us to make some changes, mostly pertaining to inclusivity, just to add some modernization there. And then it went before this group last month and has been reviewed and recommended by the Transportation Advisory Committee. And with your blessing, we're hoping to go to the Policy Board next month for formal adoption. So I thought I'd ask if there are any questions or comments at this point.
Okay, yes, Aubrey.
A couple questions and a comment. Is there any plan to engage youth in the discussion? I saw the various sort of groups you were going to be reaching out to, and didn't really see youth explicitly represented.
Good question. What level are you thinking? College, high school, 18 and over?
14 and up, maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
14 and up?
Mhm.
Okay. That's a good idea.
A number of Harrison students were involved in the Circle Drive overpass discussion that's happening right now, and I think it proved to be a valuable process. And you're stewarding potential future transportation folks.
Of course.
So that's exciting.
That's,
Another question, so it sort of pertains to our discussion of draft chapters, which is coming up, but there's some mention of sort of making the language more accessible, less
Yes.
complex.
Yes.
Is there a sort of a process for how you plan to do that, or can the CAC be helpful in any way?
I think the CAC could definitely be helpful with that. I mean, it's in terms of making the language more accessible, I would think just generally getting rid of acronyms and jargon.
Okay.
And providing different summary levels, executive summaries, one-pagers.
Yeah. I imagine as a planner and really deep in the process, it's probably hard to pull back on that.
It can be.
So
Yeah.
I think this group could be really helpful.
I agree.
And imagine some folks would volunteer for that if you wanted to. And then lastly, just a comment, I find that it's sort of a feedback loop is valuable in the process. And
Absolutely.
so as you go in at different points, kind of coming back to if there was a survey beforehand, what came out of that, what the public sort of, there were 75 of you that participated, here's what kind of came out of it, to sort of help people navigate through the next step.
And possibly bringing that back through this group as well. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, do we have other comments or questions? Okay, Hal?
No, I was just scratching my head. Sorry.
I apologize, I didn't get to this before. Page 4, it says Community Advisory Committee, and then CAC, and then it says committee again. So just take out the second committee.
Oh.
On page 4.
Thank you.
I don't know what I've done there. There we go. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, then we need to have a motion to go ahead and,
Sure.
oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
That's all right. Jim Moore. I move that we forward the public participation plan in its current form to the board and recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that?
Aubrey will second.
Okay, Aubrey will second. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay, passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, we need to go on to our informational discussions. And we have Catherine back up here. Thank you, Catherine.
Catherine Wenger, Transportation Planner. As with last month, this is batch number 2 for our long-range transportation plan draft chapters. And this one is it completes most of the rest of the chapters that we have for information. There's still a couple that are lingering, and that will be brought to you next month. And that's a lot of the appendices, and which are plans that have been approved before, so they're not something you haven't seen before. And then we also have the financial plan and the freight and economics chapter, and the financial plan, which is also just a chapter, that will come to you next month. So this month, we're just asking you to review draft chapters 2, or batch 2, and 1 if you haven't checked those out yet. Please let me know if you have any issues with the link. I know it's kind of a weird link where you have to go and download things, and it's kind of hidden, actually. So with that, I can take any questions on the process, and we're asking that all comments be made to us by August 2nd on all of the batches, so that we can bring those comments back to the committees for the chapters. We'll have a chance to review those, and then it'll be brought back to you again for final release to the public before it goes to our 30-day public notice. And then, again, we'll bring those back to you with more comments. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to review these documents and the comments that are being made. And then final approval we're hoping for in January of 2020.
Jim.
Good question. I meant to add my email at the bottom of the memo, and I forgot, so thank you. You can send them to me at my email, and if you don't have can't remember my email, I'll tell it right now. You can email Jessica, and she'll make sure she gets it to me. But my email is kwenger, WENGER, at ppacg.org. Again, that's KWENGER at ppacg.org. And I'll make sure my email's in the next memo. Sorry about that.
Okay. Do we have further? Okay, go ahead. Tim.
Kathleen, just had a process question. When we say we put it out for public review or public comment,
yes,
exactly how does that happen?
That's a good question. So we have as the public participation plan states, we have a 30-day comment period, and that goes out and as a news release announcement, and we also do go to public events, or we plan to go to public events to kind of bring our document or the draft document out to the public and get their feedback on it. And typically that happens with the executive summary, which will be coming to you next month as well. So that's kind of how we reach out. We send it, we put it on our website, we post it on our public sites, so like our social media, and then we also go out to them as well and bring it to you all as well, since you're part of the public.
Further question? Okay. Then we need to move on, I guess, to the grant information. Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Mason with the Colorado Department of Transportation. I'm here for Rob Fry to discuss the build grant information that will be, it should be in the packet there if you scroll down just a little bit more. Do you have a map? Hopefully. Nope. I'll pass around a map that we have that will help maybe better explain some of the portions of the grant. Oh, I think easier to read, a little bit easier to speak to. With the map that's passing around, you're going to see that we're going to have 4 areas that we'll be working on as part of this build grant application. Also, to quickly mention, there are other regional build grants going in, but this one is particularly confined to these 4 areas related to the Colorado Department of Transportation's build grant application. Our partner with this is El Paso County. We have 2 areas and 2 specific projects as part of this build grant that we will be partnering with them on. I'll start with their 2 projects first. The first one on the southern end of the project, you'll notice Charter Oak Ranch Road project, which was part of an earlier Tiger grant for planning and design. That is now complete, and what we will be doing is leveraging that project and adding about additional $5 million of the $25 million ask from the build grant to complete that project. That will improve the access at Gate 19, which is number 5 on your map. It's a critical access that for Fort Carson, as they're seeing additional backups at Gate 20, which is right off of State Highway 16. So we hope to improve the mobility not only to Fort Carson, but also along I-25. The other El Paso County project that we will be combining with is number 6 on your map, and that is Academy Boulevard widening, and that's going to go from existing 4 lanes to 6 lanes from I-25 to Bradley Road. Most of the pavement is there, so we'll be widening and adding additional shoulders. There's going to be some bridge work, which will be some scour protection, which will likely be mostly along Fountain Creek area. But you'll see a lot of additional pavement, again, for just those shoulders, but then mostly striping on the bridges, so no significant structural work will be added. That is a PPRTA List A project at about $18 million. There's also additional $5 million in Metro that's been added to bring that total up to $23 million now. I know it says 18, but this continues to be a moving target as we're refining the construction costs. Now, for the CDOT projects that we were showing here, number 1 is I-25 safety improvements. And what that ends up being is about an overlay of approximately 8 miles. We're going to be overlaying the existing asphalt with concrete, but then also adding 12-foot shoulders on each side. So if you drive through that area, you'll notice that there is some cable barrier, there is some concrete barrier, but the inside shoulders are especially narrow. We've had 4 fatalities within that stretch, and we want to make sure that we're providing the adequate storage space and safety refuge for our troopers as well as vehicles that tend to break down in that area. Number 2 is I-25 and South Academy bridge replacement. That is about a $22 million repair and complete replacement of the 2 bridges in that area. And again, it's the I-25 bridges that go over Academy Boulevard. The I-25 bridge rehab, we have a number of bridges along that same 8-mile corridor that we just spoke to. They're going to be overlaid and a little bit of waterproofing membrane added to those bridges to increase their improvements on the deck. State Highway 94 safety improvements. Now you may ask yourself why we're adding that component to this. And really we're looking at this build grant as a connection in between our existing Air Force and military installations down at Fort Carson. So we have strategic corridors that we like to identify and making sure that they're well represented and they're available for movement and quick mobility in between our Air Force and Fort Carson Army base. Now what will happen with State Highway 94 is we don't have design yet, but we're anticipating westbound improvements for passing lanes as we do have quite a bit of heavy truck traffic, especially dump truck traffic through there. We've had a couple fatalities over the last 10 years of airmen that were killed along that stretch, and we're making additional safety improvements to the intersections for the connection out at Shraver. So collectively, we feel that these improvements really look at the base needs as well as community mobility needs and asking for PPACG board letter of support for this application.
Do we have any questions? Anybody? Okay. Okay, Aubrey.
Should you get awarded this, does it free up any sort of already allocated funds, or are all these wish list projects that don't have any?
Right now, we have funding for the I-25 safety improvements, the bridge rehab, as well as the bridge replacement. And what we're doing is leveraging those existing investments that we're making and adding that additional $5 million to help Charter Oak Ranch Road get completed, because that's a deficit that they have. And again, leveraging what the PPRTA A-list Academy widening is to go ahead and make those additional leverages to get State Highway 94 done. So it's really looking at these projects globally, what makes sense, especially the timing of them, the fact that we've got Charter Oak Ranch Road ready to go and fully designed, and Jennifer with El Paso County is forwarding and advancing the design for South Academy, and we can really leverage all of those improvements and really get collectively some savings, whether we look at the mobilization of a contractor, our overall construction management will really see globally those savings there. So it makes sense not only just to leverage it to get additional $25 million for funding to get all these projects completed, but it also makes sense from a regional standpoint of how can we best be stewards of our tax dollars.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions? This is informational, so. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we need to go to Jason Nelson.
Madam Chair and Citizens Advisory Committee. It's been a while since I've been here. I did have a request to talk about accident and crash data, so it's kind of it's an odd topic to talk about. I don't know. So I kind of want to approach this from a trend, saying statewide trends. We could talk about that. Oops, where'd I go? What happened? Yeah, thanks. Okay, I think. Am I in the right? Yes. Okay. I guess, is there anything you guys want to get out of this we could focus in on, or should I just kind of go through this and see what pops up? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to know trend.
Trends.
Are we going up? Are we going down?
Okay. Let's go. Yeah, trends are good. Well, Not for us. I'll let you know. I know. Total fatalities for the state. So we have, and so you can kind of see 33% higher than our 4-year average from 2010 to 2014. So this is the 2018. So it's 4% lower than 2017 statewide. 60% of all fatalities are on CDOT highways. The fatality rate is 1.15. So that's million vehicle miles traveled. So out of every 1 million vehicle miles traveled, we'll have 1.15 fatalities, which is it's an increase from the 2010 to 2014. Though we have a downtrend from 2017, so that's kind of good. Ooh, that's a tough one to read. Oh, let me if I can do this as a show. Oh, it's not a show, is it? I thought it was a PowerPoint. Yeah, that's all I can go. Well, how can I help? So I guess if we focus on the red lines, and I think there's something really interesting going here. I want to show the rural versus urban. This is kind of it. This is kind of the prelude to it. So I think starting in 2005, we have 600 fatalities, and we had a steady decrease. And so at the 2011, we kind of bottomed out at about a little under 500. And then from there, we start seeing an increase. But I think the years 2011, 2012 important. I think that plays into the switch of the urban fatality rate and the rural fatality rate. Something really interesting happened there. And so keep those years. I think we're studying this a lot more to try to understand that. So it's good to notice this swing, the downtrend and the uptick. So 2018, we ended up high. Overall, statewide, it was a slight reduction. So here's that fatality rate, vehicle miles traveled. Let me see if I can get you the key. So I think the really good thing is in here, because I hear a lot, and this is a good graph saying we have a greater population, and so that explains why we have more fatalities. So the slopes of these graphs disagree with that. We do have a greater population, but the fatality rate is not matching that growth. So actually, our fatality rate's going up at a faster rate than our population's growth. So it is concerning. I know. So nationally, the fatality rate's 1.16, 13% increase in fatalities. So everyone's kind of upticking from that 4-year. 4% increase in fatality rate from 2010. 27 states decreased in fatalities from 2016, which is good. Colorado, though, in 2017, our fatality rate was 1.21. So if you remember, 2018 went it down slightly less than 2017, but 2017 was a big year for us. So that data is a 38% increase in fatalities from that 4-year block, 22% increase in fatality rate, and we're the 30th worst VMT fatality rate by state, and we're the 25th lowest population by fatality rate. So let me get to the presentation, we can talk. I know, unless you have like a really good question, because I don't know the right order in these charts, but there's a lot of good information and maybe some plausible answers to these things. So if you need to know, yeah, okay.
On the Colorado 30th and 25th, and I don't know whether we want to be the 9th and 4th or what, is the worst VMT fatality rate. Is that ranking from best to worst?
Yeah, so.
And what about the population fatality rate? Is that from best?
Yeah.
Highest to lowest or lowest to highest?
Yeah, you don't want to be the number one worst. That'd be bad. So it is from, so following back towards 50 is better. So it's, I don't know where we want.
The higher the number, the better we are.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I was just driving in Texas over the last weekend, and they've already got 1,300 and some highway fatalities
Yeah.
recorded year to date.
Yeah, they always break 4 digits in the
Well,
thousands.
that's, you know,
That's a,
that's
that's a really big thing.
Oh, well, that's good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Everything.
I got a quick. Hi. Do you have statistics as to what caused the fatality?
Yes.
You know, was it drunk driving? Was it speeding? Was it?
So I think that's where I end you guys to. I think there's a driver behavior or driver decisions based. And I think if we talk to law enforcement, it's a little rougher. We talk about the 5 Ds, you know, drugged, drunk, distracted, dozy, and dumb. And I think that's it. And I don't know how to lead you guys to that, but driver behavior, trying to change that, it's our biggest challenge. So I think there's something geometric or something wrong with the system. Those are easy to identify and address. In fact, those are really easy to get funding for to fix if it happens. If we have to do a really hard pattern, we can really identify and go after it. The ones that we struggle with and we spend a lot of time in, you've probably seen some of our marijuana, click it or ticket it, or drunk driving. We do a lot of informational campaigns to get ahead of those. Because those are the ones we struggle with, and those are pretty consistent. And I think there's a slide in here that shows DUI fatality rate. And no matter the amount of fatalities, the percentages, pretty much, it stays constant.
Stays high.
Yeah, I mean, it shifts, I think it's between 30 and 31% over the years, but it's those things that we really challenge with, or we struggle with and try to get ahead of, but we can't stop doing anything, so we throw a lot of things at the wall to see what sticks.
Well, I live up in Green Mountain Falls area, and there was a click it or ticket sign. And I came here from North Carolina. I was back there. I grew up here, but I was back there. And the Governor's Highway Safety Commission, I was pretty active in that kind of business stuff. And I even went to Washington when Surgeon General Koop had his big thing in, when was it, 1988, about drunk driving as a national emergency. And it just isn't getting any better. And now with the drugs, marijuana and all that, making people less concerned about what they're doing, that just really is a big concern to me. And our law enforcement people are not able to do a lot, you know. They try.
So I have some good news on marijuana. I mean, so usually these are really morbid conversations, and I try to show that I'm not desensitized to fatalities. So it's a close topic to my heart. So I don't know how to talk about it with citizens. So, but the good thing with marijuana, we knew it was coming, so we did a lot of information campaigns. So we have data on fatalities and the amount of the active ingredient in marijuana. So the dose fatality rate versus our most recent data, and it's showing a much bigger decline. So we're showing a lighter trace amount, so they could have been high a week or two before, and so that's gone down. So that's rising, but the high concentration where it probably impaired their driving has halved in a year. So we're hoping for a downward trend. So I think we've learned a lot of good lessons on our education, so we really went after this one pretty hard. So, I mean, it's not conclusive, it's 2 years of data, but it's a good trend.
Is there still no appetite for a primary seatbelt law?
So CDOT's not allowed to campaign, but we've spent 10 years of our life trying to go after that. And so I don't know. I don't think there is any more right now, but I'd love to see one personally. So
I don't know if everybody knows here, but we have secondary seatbelt laws. So you can't actually get pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt. If you get pulled over for something else, you can get a ticket if it was shown that you weren't wearing your seatbelt, but you can't. The click it or ticket is a little misleading because...
I know.
Yeah.
What's killing me?
A question and a comment. Question, what is the correlation between aggregate motor vehicle miles traveled and fatalities?
It normalizes us nationwide. So like Texas, you have a lot of vehicles, a lot of travel, a lot of distance. So if they'll probably end up with 2,700 fatalities. And so I don't know where we're going to land. We might end up 500, 600, around there. So which state's doing better, and how do we compare? Is there something Texas is doing better, or vice versa? So that's why we normalize it with the vehicle miles traveled. That just gives you a flat rate. And so then nationally, we can all compare and see how we're doing.
Well, my comment would be on that chart that you showed us, which had fatalities, and it had bars, and it had
Yeah,
lines.
that one's a
and all
rough one.
kinds of- But the thing that struck me was, it looked to me as though we had a drop in fatalities about the same time that we had the recession, the Great Recession. And as we started to come out of that, your data starting at 2010 begins to capture the increase in a lot of different factors, I think, that might have played. Okay.
No, it's a standing theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any other? Okay, I do have one comment. I had just been spending about 8 days in California.
Okay.
And one of the things that California passed, which I think is great, and I've already started working with my state senator on this, is that anytime your windshield wiper is on, your lights are on. And not only does that give you better vision, but it gives all the drivers around you, they know where you're at. Now, a number of the newer cars I know have that, but there are a lot of them who don't. And my cousin informed me, because I had rented this cute little Nissan pickup, that didn't have that particular feature. And she said, if your lights, and it was raining, and they live in the desert, and she said, if it is raining and those lights aren't on, they will ticket you. And I think it's a great thing that maybe this might help somewhat. Like I said, I've already started working with my state senator to see if we can't do something about that.
Yeah.
And apparently there are a number of other states that also have it. It's
Yeah.
not, so, anyway, just something maybe that will help.
Yeah. Hey,
Okay.
throw it at the wall, I say.
You bet. Okay.
Yeah.
Other comments? Okay.
I guess I have one other question.
Sure. Go ahead, Aubrey.
Do you happen to know if we have more speeding than any other places? I mean, it seems like speed is a factor in almost all fatalities. A lot of
Are you ready? Well,
Is that sort of
Kind of.
everywhere? I
it's
mean,
all right. So, I mean, what we find is not speeding, but speed differentials.
Oh.
Oh.
Right. So, I mean, if you have everyone traveling 110 miles, it's a little bit safer than people traveling 90 and 60 miles.
Okay.
So the accident rates climb significantly. So, like, back of queue congestion, you'll see a spike in accidents that are typical, right? But, I mean, they're minor, they're rear ends, but that's just because of that differential. So speeding, I think it's more, when there's an accident, it's more significant and tragic, but I think the rate, probably, I know the rate is not as high when you have differentials.
Go ahead.
So the slow drivers are the problem, is what I hear. What about distracted driving? I mean, there's a lot of people with cell phones, texting and all that kind of thing. Do we track that, or what?
Yes, it's a huge problem. The solution, I don't know, it would be legislative, right? But we provide this data to anyone and everyone, so yes, distracted driving is a big problem.
But I assume your problem with information and data on that is nobody's going to fess up to it. I was on my phone and oops.
Well,
I assume it's going to be underrepresented.
No, we have really good data.
Really?
Yeah, so I think, and it may be a function of the investigation, right? So text logs, phone logs are a free game, right? No, literally, so we do have data on it, and so I don't know if people are honest. I'd hope so. I don't know. I mean, you already have fault. It'd be, hey, we could, I don't know. But we do have good data. Well, I think it's good. I don't know.
I've got another comment. Or were you going to go on, Bill? I'm sorry.
Just wonder, is there any correlation in the fatality rate on 25 since they raised the speed limit from 55 up?
No. So maybe let me talk to you how we do speed limits, and it's a statewide policy. And there's no variation. So what we do is we just collect average running speed during non-congested periods. So 1 or 2 when there's a few cars and just what people are naturally wanting to drive. So you can't collect the data with them knowing this. You kind of have to hide and collect it. But then we'll graph that, and so 85 percentile speed. So if everyone's doing 80, I mean, we can't set the speed limit at 80, but if everyone's doing 75, that would be the ideal speed limit. That's what everyone naturally feels comfortable driving. So it's very scientific. It's not subjective. Or
It's hard to separate out increased traffic versus increased speed. Which one causes for accident?
Yeah.
I've got just one more comment. I don't get down to Colorado Springs a lot, but I just wanted to say that up on the Ute Pass on 24, near the Walmart and other places, they'll have a flashing yellow light saying, you better be prepared, the light is going to change to red. And I think that's a great idea. It seems to be helping. I don't know how long they've been up there, but we have a lot of traffic, of course, as you can imagine in the summer, like everybody. But things like that, I think, are good. Also, I think Hal mentioned in Scotland, we were there one time and rented a car, which was an adventure. But their signs say, reduce speed now. They don't say reduce speed in 45 feet or something. They say now. And I like that because you do it now.
Well, I think, let me talk about something that's coming and should be coming soon. I think there's going to be some support for it, and Paul will probably talk about this. Variable speed limits. We are implementing on the GAP project, and so that's really done by the accident rate. So you can kind of track when speeds go down, the accident rate spikes, you kind of want to get ahead of that curve. So you get that curve data, which we have, and then you set your speed based on congestion on that. So it's very variable, but it's all to reduce accident rates. So I think the construction project's good. I'm chasing it on 285 up Red Hill Pass for weather, not really congestion. But so I think variable speed limits, I think you're going to see a lot of it if we can prove it's really effective in Colorado. So it's a long presentation. I don't have to go through it. I mean, we can. What do you guys?
Yeah. It's,
okay.
We're good. Okay. Thank you.
Email out the presentation to everybody afterwards so you can look in detail through all the graphs and information.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
okay.
guys.
No, that's okay. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Sure. It was great. Okay, and now we have CDOT update. Paul?
Give me all the time.
Right.
More time here, so I've got the better presentation.
Okay.
Supposedly. Not a lot of graphs and things, so I put a lot of pictures in my stuff, so there we go. All right. Yes, please. I'm just going to page down here, right, to get through it. There we go. All right. My name is Paul Neiman. I'm the CDOT project director for construction out there on the South I-25 GAP project. Give you guys an update here on what we're doing, what's going on, and I have not been here before, so I'll back up a little history. Just I think you guys are familiar with what's going on, but this is what we're building out there. We typically have, or generally right now, we have these lanes up top there, and we're proposing this section below, which is you see with the express lane and the 15-foot shoulders and a 12-foot shoulder on the outside is our new template that we will have out there in a couple years. That's where we're going. So we've got the project right now. So we put this project together under CMGC style of contracting, which means we were able to package it out, put it out in packages. That helps us keep the design going, get it out quicker. We had a contractor come on board early on, help us with design improvements and really tighten up the budget and build it the best way possible, with the contractor telling us how to build it instead of us engineers just trying to figure out how they could build it. So we started with the north section, which is under construction now. That north section runs from Plum Creek Parkway to Skyview. And basically the project, it's 18 miles. It's basically broken into 3 6-mile sections there. So the northern 6 miles is what's under construction right now. We've got the southern section, which became our package 2, and those were both kind of picked strategically based on how hard they were. The middle package, The middle section is the tougher part because of all the bridges in close proximity of them there, plus the railroad issues that we have in there. So the second package is this southern part that's under construction also. Working on that. That just came out here in March. And now we're getting ready for the third section. So the third section will be online probably July, mid-July or so, probably end of July is when it'll be fully under construction there. So we're finishing up the design on that. And we've got some bid prices already from the contractor. Now we go through some negotiations with them, and that should be coming online, like I said, in July. What was I going to say here? So, just to give you an overview on how this is going to run. So this north section is scheduled to be done basically in November of 2021. So when we get this third package rolling right now, we're going to have all 18 miles lined with barrier. And we've got a lot of issues with that, CDOT and first response, and we've got a lot of things going on with that. We're going to have all 18 miles lined with barrier. The first northern section, though, however, is due to be completed by November of 2020. We need to have that done. So next year, November, contrary's got to be done, so it needs to look like that full cross section. It's got to have the 15-foot shoulders, 12-foot inside. All the pavement needs to be done by next November. Then following that, a year later, he's got to have the second part done, which is the southern section. The package 2 area has got to be done, the same thing. And the package 3 area is right in the middle of that. It should be by December. They should have the rest of that third package done also. So by December of 2021, we really will have all the pavement out there. And so the project's scheduled right now to be done in 2022, but 2021 will really have all the pavement done, all the widening. You'll see the barriers, you'll see all the widening, all the pavement, everything, all the stripes and everything. But we need to come back in the summer of 2022 and do a final overlay in that third middle section because of the specific top pavement that we are using, which is called an SMA pavement. That oil and to make that material, we can only get that material March through April every year. That's the only time it's supplied. So that is a schedule impact for us. So we have to do that the next year. So for all intents and purposes, though, you will not know the difference because we will have the other layers of HMA there. It'll look like all the full width is there. You'll be able to drive by the end of 2021. You'll be able to have that. So we just need 2022 to basically do an overlay. We'll do that at night. Everything else will be in place. We'll have structures set up for the toll collection system and that integration. That still needs to happen, but that'll happen under traffic. We'll open that express lane up at certain times for free as we test it and do a bunch of things in there. There's a little bit of we're trying to figure out how to run that, how we want to run that before we actually get that rolling, because we don't want to let everybody get in there and then all of a sudden we shut it back down and we let them back in there and we shut it. So we're working on some of that phase in there. So for the most part, like I said, it's got construction scheduled completion in 2022, but really by 2021 you're going to see some huge improvements there in this whole area. So it's got our working days up there. We've got some of our typical working hours. So we're typically working during the day, but we're kind of working 24/7 out here on this job. We've got all kinds of things going on all different days. When we're behind barrier, where we can work pretty much any time. When we need to do a lane closure, we've restricted all the lane closures from basically 8 to 5. And then we will have some weird closures for bridge setting, when we set girders and bridge demolition. We'll have some other advanced things, all of which will be PR'd out in advance. So we got some of those things going up, and I'll go into that with some of the actual construction stuff going on, or the update here. So this is just some of the construction activities we're doing now. As you can imagine, everything out there has got to go. Pretty much we're scraping a lot of it. We're tagging on to some of the pavement, the old existing asphalt out there. We're actually reusing a lot of it, which makes the job harder because we're trying to build new to old instead of just building it all new. So it's kind of complicated there and that, but we're stripping out all the median, we're filling in the median, we're building the barrier wall all the way through this whole thing. We've got several walls, 8 different bridges. 4 of those are brand new wildlife crossings that we're installing through here. We're actually setting girders on one of the wildlife crossings here next week. So we're moving along. We've been able to maintain schedule pretty good through this never-ending winter that we've had. So surprisingly enough, it's kind of eaten up some of their float time, but actually we've actually been able to do a ton of other these things here, the drainage work, all the underground stuff, which has to be done first. We've been able to maintain schedule on that and get ahead of it, get a lot of that stuff done. So we're still pretty good on schedule. The contractor was really hoping to be ahead of schedule, but we're just on schedule now, so no kind of fluff here. We're hoping to make up some better schedule this summer. If we ever get to summer this year, we're going to go 24/7 with some of our paving operations. So we have 800,000 tons of asphalt that we need to put out there. So far, we've got 22,000 tons down. We got 800,000 tons. I mean, it's a lot in the scope of most overlay projects, little projects we do, 3-4 mile overlay projects, we do about 40,000 tons to just do kind of a 2-inch overlay, 2 or 3 lanes wide on a typical street here, and it usually takes us 6 months to do that. We're going to do 800,000 tons, so that's going to push us into these 24/7 operations with paving. Paving is our critical path. We've got to pave just about every day to make schedules, so that's kind of where we're at. And like I said, we've been able to do pretty good. We've had to do all the underground first, of course, so just a bunch of the fiber work, we've relayed a bunch of new fiber conduit. We've got some restriping we're doing here, and I'll go into that the next slide. It's got some more what's coming up this summer here, wildlife crossings. We're working on the Greenland Road interchange. Yeah, some of those things will go in the next phase. So this is our kind of newest media release we're getting ready to put out to everybody for this summer, things that are going on. So you can see, I'll just go through the numbers really quick, but basically what it is, 1 and 7 are basically big restriping changes on the entrance to the project. We need to push traffic over. We need to, in that lane, as you go north here, get to Monument Hill, that drop lane that's in the left lane, we have to end that sooner because it affects a lot of our challenges. It's just in a bad spot where it's at. It's in a bad spot already. And so we're going to push it back further south. So we're going to just do some restriping there. That's coming up here in the next few weeks, really. Same thing on the north end. As you come from Plum Creek, there's 3 lanes that go through under Plum Creek, and then that 3rd lane drops as you go south, right about Toma Road. We're actually going to drop that road, that 3rd lane. We're going to drop that 3rd lane at Plum Creek. So only 2 lanes will go through, and 2 lanes will have to exit at the Plum Creek Church. So we're going to change the sign in there and make it so people aren't going into the project area and then having to make a maneuver within the work zone. We'll let them make it all the way before Plum Creek before they ever enter the work zone there. So that's coming also in a few weeks. Number 2 there is the county line off-ramps. We're going to close the northbound on and the southbound on for some period to get those rebuilt, and we'll have the basic detour, so the whole project is committed to not ever detouring traffic to 105 or 83 unless it's an incident, a full-blown incident where CSP or enforcement, first responders send traffic that way. So we will keep all traffic on I-25 as best we can. So the detour routes are really take I-25, go up to Upper Lake Gulch, turn around and go south. Now we know the locals will know the shortcuts and go the other ways, but for us advertising, we're not advertising to ever use County Line or go to 103 or anything. So that's coming up. That's pretty big just to rebuild those ramps. We've got Greenland Interchange. That's getting ready for the crossover to go into place. So to build the bridge, as we typically do, we got to push all traffic to one side and then the other. So we got to cross traffic over into the other side with barriers separating them. So that's coming fairly soon here too. And so we got that next thing. And then number 4 is just the package 3 starting up. So we're going to start barrier lining. That middle section right now does not have barrier in between Larkspur and Greenland base. So that we're starting to line some of that with some of our barrier, but that's going to get underway, and then we'll move traffic to the outside so we can build the inside and then flip-flop that later. So number 5 there is the traffic shift. What is that traffic shift? That's just some more moving traffic around. So number 5, it really should be more Larkspur. So we're getting ready for the Renaissance Festival. It's a huge thing, we know. So what we've done this year is we're not going to do anything this summer to affect the ramps at Upper Lake Gulch or Spruce Mountain Road. We're going to leave those all in place. We're actually going to try and extend the decel lane to Spruce Mountain Road so they can actually stack all the way to Skyview. And we're not going to mess with the pavement there. They're not going to mess and take out lanes, and we're going to keep that as best we can and keep the bridges in place this year. Next year, however, it's kind of all bets are off. We're not 100% sure where we will be at in schedule because we're taking out that Spruce Mountain flyover that takes you on the northbound. So that bridge, we're not quite sure where we're going to be at with that next year for next year's Renaissance Festival. We're trying to right now reschedule and try and see if we can get that bridge done in a season outside of the Renaissance Festival and not impact Renaissance, because when that bridge is out, everybody has to go to Upper Lake Gulch. and vice versa. And that's right now how we have it phased right now. They can use Upper Lake, one or the other can be out, but they can't have both of them out, of course. So that, it's a little tricky. This year, though, we've already talked with, fire, Larkspur and everybody, and we told them we're not going to mess with that this year. And we're going to leave it alone so we can try and get through this year. This 8 weeks, it starts in June 15th, starts the Renaissance Festival. So believe us, we have it on our radar because we know it's a huge impact. And, the weekends mainly, but we're working weekends too. So we know we've got to stay clear from that. We're planning some other strategies to kind of stay clear, make sure we're not pulling trucks in and out Saturday and Sunday in that area. So, because we have a lot of truck bringing materials, a lot of trucks bringing materials in and out of the project site. So that's basic. That's a lot of stuff going on this summer, and of course it's just lots of phasing back and forth. We're getting ready to switch. Right now all the traffic in the northern section is pushed to the outside. We're getting ready to switch them into the middle in July. I think we're going to push them in. So just lots of switches, as you can imagine, lots of impacts there. We'll go on here. So, I mean, that's the project there. A lot of things going on in the project, and then here's just a lot of the rest of this here is really some of the stuff we're trying to do to minimize impacts to the commuters. And it's a whole laundry list of things we've tried to implement that the project is paying for and trying to just help whatever we can, and let me go right here real quick to this. So if we look at this, talking about traffic data and stuff, so I pulled this data. This is the data for the Gap area there. So the Gap had in 2015, 2016, 2017, that exact stretch we're in, there's 1,508 accidents that we recorded, that we have data on. Of that, there's approximately 500 of those were injury accidents that resulted in 982 people getting injured. And we had, I think it's 13 there, we had 10 fatal accidents, 13 people died in those 10 fatal accidents. 2 of them were the cops, the CSP officers that died. So if you just look at that trend right there, there's 500 accidents a year. That's 3-year data, so 500 accidents on average a year in that, and 4 people die every year in that. Just straight average out of that. Most of it's in the daytime, as you can imagine, because the volumes are higher. This doesn't really go into the time of year or anything like that. So there's quite a few accidents there. So the picture you see over here on the left side here, this is what we're doing, tracking a lot of this data, trying to figure out what's going on and trying to compensate for what the accidents we're seeing based on what we've done out there, right? We're tearing up the road. We've got a barrier line, so we're trying to analyze it by mile, by time of day. We've got all these little things we're going through, trying to put together some sense what we can do, and then what traffic strategies we can use to try and help that out. So we had noticed some big trends at 174 northbound. We, for some reason, having accidents there every Tuesday. Tuesday was crazy day or something. I don't know what it was, but every Tuesday at 174 we'd have an accident. So we adjusted a few things. We tried to move some barrier. We tried to check striping. We actually moved some signs in advance of that to tell people to slow down. We put speed radars up to try and be, it's a little bit of a blinding curve, we thought maybe is what it was. So try to mess with that, and that was a few months ago, and I think we got some of that because we haven't had a big spike in that now. I think we got some things there. So we're working on that. We record, so we have Courtesy Patrol on the project, and Courtesy Patrol is our tow trucks, right? We had one, and we added a second one because we definitely could see the demand. CDOT still has its force of 24 Courtesy Patrol tow trucks that run during the week, and they run half that shift during the weekends, but not all are in our area. They're covering the whole metro area, but they will gather wherever there's a problem. If there's a major incident, they'll move to wherever there's problems. So we add it to for the project that the project pays for. And they're required to track all this. Every time they make a contact, every time they talk to somebody, every time they do anything, they have to record that. So they, so far, and this is April, end of April, they had about, it was just over 500 contacts with people. They actually went up and had to talk to, and a ton of those, they weren't accidents, they were just people stopped. People grabbing their cell phone out of the back of their car, people changing the diaper for a kid, stopped in the lane, stopped somewhere on the project, just weird spots. It sounds like that cannot happen, but that's exactly, he tracks all this. So we're trying to do PR efforts now, telling people, don't stop in the zone, don't stop in the drive. There is no shoulders. We have certain pullouts and stuff. That's a strategy we've done, and I'll show you that here. But out of that, we've had 139 crashes that we've towed off. And so we've been out there about 250 days now we've been out there. And of that, we've had about 139, I think, crashes. So and those numbers aren't complete because we're not there every minute. So just looking at that kind of numbers there, it's like there's more than an accident a day in that from the original data, 500 accidents a year. So we think we're doing better. And the best thing of it is we've had no fatalities. We've been there 8 months, 9 months, and we've had 0 fatalities on the project. We've had lots of incidents and crashes, but no fatalities. And we had the Cyclone Blizzard, again, an incident and crashes, but no fatalities. So we're not sure. We've lowered the speed limits in the zone, 65, and like Jason was talking about, we're getting ready to deploy a variable speed limit system in there that will raise and lower it at certain times, and we've got some strategies to work on that. So just, I guess, just trying to tag on to Jason's data overload for you guys on on traffic there. So backing up to some of these things, so of those things we're watching, these are other things we're doing to mitigate traffic. Is the PR efforts are extensive. We've got a huge, massive PR campaign going where we're trying to reach out to everybody in text, Facebook, social media. We have special media events, media briefings. We're reaching out to HOAs. We're going out to talk to everybody, trying to get them information, trying to disseminate this information, tell them what to do, watch out, and here's what's coming up. So we've got this travel demand management program that we're paying for to try and increase some ridership and try and increase carpools. So we got Dr. Cog is running that, and they're trying to put the word out, hey, use a carpool. They're trying to do some incentives to get people to use carpools to reduce some of the volumes in the gap. The bus staying is part of that too. They've added those bus stayings. I think they added 2 buses or so, and to get from Colorado Springs there. So that's part of that campaign also. We're trying to get ridership on that. Right now the ridership's been kind of poor, but we're trying to increase that. But that's another effort of the project, trying to get people out of that corridor, through that corridor. Good.
Just real quick comment, it'd be
Sure.
interesting to see if you could add a Renaissance Festival stop for the bus staying and somehow give priority to the buses to get off.
Yeah.
I haven't been in years, so I don't know if then you'd have to shuttle from the off-ramp or if the bus staying could go all the way in and drop off. but-
What I hear about is the biggest problem isn't the traffic per se, it's the trains. The trains block all the traffic and they back up. So there's nothing you can do. We can, you all know we cannot tell the railroad anything. So they just put their trains where they want to. So that is one of the biggest problems. So even if we could get a bus and we get everybody on, 8 buses, they're all stuck there with the railroad for 5 or 10 minutes and they just can't get through. So I think we talked about that a little bit, but I don't think anybody was convinced that would be effective enough. We're still trying to get these couple that we added and get the ridership to make sure it's paying for it, or at least making use of it for the public. So we've got lane closure strategies. Another thing, we're restricted certain times we do lane closures, stuff like that. We've except for safety critical work, which may be long-term closures, different things like that we'll PR out, but mostly we are trying to stick to that 8 p.m. to 5:30 is the only time we'll take a lane closure, and then we're off the road. We've done some emergency pothole repairs and things like that because there's just, the pavement is substandard out there, and where we push traffic to now, they're riding on shoulders that's blowing up the pavement. So we're dealing with that, trying to maintain that, but trying to stay within the policy on our lane closures, so is a big deal. We've got no detouring, like I mentioned. We're not detouring anywhere. We're trying to keep them always on I-25. We've got speed limit reduction. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that just this morning I was listening to, and all the TV stations do it, all of the traffic guys tell you, oh, or 105 and 83 are quicker, take that. So you guys aren't doing it. Is there anything you can talk to them?
That's a good point. Yeah, I hear that too, and maybe that's a good point that I need to bring up to my PR people. Yeah, it's hard to control where people are going to go. We've heard that complaint. We're just trying to tell everybody, we will not detour them there. We know people will use those routes no matter what because Google's going to tell them, go that way. So I agree, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll bring that up to my PR team. They got, yeah, that's a good point. So, and then we got speed limits reduced to 65. Trying to help out. So this is a big thing we've got on this project that really most projects don't ever do. In fact, I think we're the first project doing this operations center. So that picture in the middle right there is our operations center. We've got sort of a bunch of TVs there where we can control the cameras and we can see what's going on, so we can provide kind of an incident management center for when there is stuff going on. We can dispatch our courtesy patrol to get the wrecks cleared. Part of the learning that we've done down there is these I thought I had it on this slide, but we do these emergency response meetings every 2 weeks. We bring in CSP, Douglas County Sheriffs, the fire stations, Castle Rock, Larkspur, Tri-Lakes, We bring them all in and we go through what the project's doing and do lessons learned, figure out what we can do to help each other and trying to work together, because we have some capabilities when we're there. We've got, the contractor has some big toys to help move things, move equipment if we have to, so now they know what we've got. We know how we can assist them. So this operations center is part of that. We can direct some of resources to any of these incidents if we see them, if something comes up. So we've got that going. The smart work zone is all that, the portable variable speed limit signs, the truck entering, exiting systems that we're using. So when trucks pull out, there's a sign that flashes the truck exiting coming onto the system. Queue detection system, if we have some cameras that are pointing at the freeway, when traffic slows down, automatically they'll have a sign that comes up and says slow traffic ahead, and that's part of that speed differential issue, when the speeds are different. Mm-hmm.
As we're coming up on
Fine.
time, I see a lot of you grabbing your jackets and things. If it's all right, I will also send out this presentation
Yes.
to everyone so you can see them all in detail, so nobody misses anything if you got to get out of here on time.
Yeah. So, and I'm almost done here. I just, like I said, these are all things, I got this laundry list of things we were trying to do on the project, really to try and help citizens. We added CSP. We're actually going to add 7 days a week. We're going to add CSP enforcement. Besides the guys that sit in our lane closure and help us with our lane closure, we're going to add full CSP enforcement. We actually are, the CDOT is going to add extra enforcement on State Highway 83. We're going to pay for some extra enforcement there, too, because we know we got lots of complaints over there. And we're going to add some to the frontage roads. We've already been doing some additional frontage road work. Those frontage roads right up in that northern area, they're made for traffic to go on, but everybody who lives there hates traffic on them. So we're trying to, get in the middle of that and trying to help out a little bit, at least keep people law-abiding. So we've got pullouts we got these 1,500-foot pullouts every mile to get access in and out of the barrier, plus for people breaking down. That's one of the strategies, the best strategy we could do with where we got to work at and how we're lining this with barrier the whole way, So we've got these pullouts within every mile we have a pullout. That's 1,500-foot pullout you can actually get out into. Frontage road, we did a lot of things on the frontage road. We restriped there. We made no passing zones on the frontage road up north there. We reduced the speed limits there because we actually have to cross and do a lot of work on the frontage road with the drainage pipes, things that go across both sides. So we did a couple things there. We restricted bikes. We moved bikes over to one side. We're doing a couple other things. We did some rumble strips for the entrances to some of the main roads there. And then here's the 10 meetings that we have, the first responder meetings. So that we have these every 2 weeks, and then we have a quarterly meeting, we have a monthly meeting just to discuss operations, our how we can operate together with everybody. Quick clearance strategies, something Douglas County sheriffs have taught us, just that's part of the courtesy patrol records to get the vehicles out as quick as possible to help with any secondary accidents. Often the secondary accidents are worse because of the speed differential. Somebody's sitting at 0, somebody's coming in at 80, and those accidents are much worse than the initial one. So quick clearance is we're all trained up on that now from the first responders, trying to, as fast as we can get traffic out of there, a collision incident. So courtesy patrol service, quick response vehicles, this is something we Douglas County came up with and offered the fire departments, Tri-Lakes and Larkspur, gave them basically a Chevy Tahoe so they could actually have better access in the project and actually drive through the median of the project if they have to get to an accident, because their fire engines are having a hard time getting through on the interstate, as you can imagine. So these QRVs came out of our 2-week meetings as kind of a lesson learned, that maybe with something like that, they've got some apparatuses on that they could actually get to something quicker than the fire engine trying to cut down through traffic there. So and then just some equipment staging. Just from the cyclone blizzard, we learned we had a lot of our personal stuff. The contractor stuff was at the Larkspur at the rest stops, and we couldn't get to them because they were there. And so now we know when the next one hit, a month later, we had all that equipment at our yard ready to go in case there was something like that again. Of course, it didn't happen again. So lessons learned, but of course, it's false. So lessons learned, but these are the kind of things we're doing day to day, every day, trying to just mitigate some of this stuff, So again, we got an open house coming up Thursday, June 6th for this package 3. That's at Larkspur Elementary School. And then we had a media briefing we had scheduled last week or something, but it got canceled. It's coming up that we'll have media there, and usually the Colorado Springs media is pretty good at covering it. So they'll be up there. They'll come to the field office, and we'll give them basically this same presentation, some things about that. And then here, I just put this on. There's Twin Oaks HOA. There's a community right there off of Territorial that would like us to come over there and speak to them. So we're going to go over there and talk to the HOA and just tell them what we know, what we can do, listen to their concerns and stuff like that. So we're doing a lot of outreach as we can. If anybody wants, us to come down, or we can try and explain some things, or just listen to the citizen complaints, really, that helps us, trying to figure out, we did learn something from that HOA, because there was a couple things we don't live there, and now we know we've got an issue with the left turn issue that we never would have thought of because we don't ever live there. So some good things come out of that. And then there's just a bunch of numbers to contact us with. I can't stress enough, really, Co-Trip's down there. If you guys go to Co-Trip, put that on your phone. You can sign up for a certain area. That's been pretty valuable because I'm signed up on it. We also have our text alerts, but the Co-Trip seems to be a little quicker on it, and it gives you some more real-time data, so you'll know right away when there's an accident, stuff's going on, if you have it circled in as your travel, where you travel at there. That one's pretty good. We do have the text alerts, though, that you'll get direct from the project that we've been trying to minimize, so you don't get one every 5 minutes, but trying to give you some other alerts that are just project-related. The Co-Trip is still run by Golden out there, so they put out the alerts from Golden. So if they know about something, which they usually do, they'll put it up on Co-Trip and on cotrip.org. Even if you want to use the maps on your phone from Co-Trip, it's actually pretty good because it'll show the work zone, it'll show the accident, they've been getting better at it. It's been kind of a little wonky in the past few years, but it seems like it's getting better. So, and then I put my number up there if you guys want. They gave me this presentation, but didn't have my number on. I'm like, well, I'll put my number up here just in case. Just in case you guys want to call me, because I really, truly do like it when you guys call, so I know, and we can fix it instead of, waiting. So, yes, sir.
Paul, it looks like you're doing a great job of trying to organize a very difficult, complex project. So, kudos. There's a lot there. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I got a good team out there. Kramer North America is the contractor. Pretty good. They drive their subs hard, so they're trying to make schedule, and they're pretty responsive to our request to change things, do things. Safety is their number one priority, and quality. So
Yeah.
Yep. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know if you guys want me to come back in a few months or something like that.
We'll definitely do
appreciate
that.
it. Though. Yeah. Sorry for running late.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call the meeting. I think we're a little bit past schedule.
Can I?
Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry. Hal?
I ask you what your reaction or feeling is after spending 45 or 50 minutes on MMT, Metro Mountain Transport. What your feeling is, because I'm quite irritated.
I'm extremely irritated.
Okay.
That was a rambling.
But I'm irritated because it's time to either make a decision to get an MMT terminal or stop wasting everybody's time, money, and resources.
But
And
they
I think
need
the
it.
CAC,
They need it.
I think the CAC ought to say something about that as a formal resolution.
Okay.
It's, it's 5:15. I've got another meeting at 6:30. I got to go home and then go to that.
Okay.
I'm going out with a bang, but I would urge this CAC to seriously think about putting together some short resolution
Right.
that says, either reprioritize it, push it through, overcome opposition from real estate interest and NIMBYs, okay, which a lot of people are, right, possibly rightfully so, or say you're not going to do it, figure out what you're going to do to the current transit center, and stop wasting time, resources, and money. But I think we need to do that. They ought to listen to us.
Okay.
And I concur, it's funny because my first meeting was talking about the downtown transit center
Yeah.
5-6 years ago. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm ending with the same thing, and we're no closer to a resolution or solution, which is sad.
I heard it when
So-
I was on the board, when I was a council person from Fountain, so, yes.
I've spent probably 18 years in government with Woodland Park, and all I hear is we got to become a destination place. We need to not be a potty stop. 18 years later, we're still a potty stop. Okay, nobody gave us $200 million to build an attraction.
Right.
Okay, this group here needs to be the catalyst with all these people fighting over this stuff, because we're all the collar areas around. It's the
Yes.
Pikes Peak area that brings people here.
Right.
If we can get some kind of a formal transit system that when people come up to Woodland Park, we can say, go to this location. You want to go to the Air Force Academy, the new visitor center, you want to go to Fort Carson, you want to go anywhere in our collar areas. There should be a way to do that right now. Where do you send them? We all have our Chamber of Commerce who still haven't showed up from our last meeting. And everybody toots their own horn. It's not your own horn.
No.
What's different in
It's all work
Fountain? What's
together.
different in Cripple Creek? They spend, well, they got a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
It
what
was-
I'm saying is, we all need to get together, like Aubrey had said here. We're the citizens. So let's do something to try to at least have them avail themselves to us for all these committees
Well, it's
to try to
definitely
push
time to
this.
ask the people and the organizations that support MMT, are you serious, or are you just going through the motions? Because that's what I heard today.
I'll add
Okay.
that to our next month on our
Yes.
agenda.
Yeah,
So,
let's
it's been
have
a
that
pleasure.
discussion. Okay. Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll see you around.
Yes, definitely. Wait.
There's going to be a citizen at large opening.
Oh, yeah? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, I think you are.
Michelle,
Yeah.
Did you know that there's both county and city openings?
Yep. Yep. There are. I don't know why not.
They're a tax